I'm going to talk today a little bit about home loans. We're going to talk a bit about effective ways to save money and hopefully ways for you to think about paying off your home faster. My big goal in life is not to have that home loan debt attached to my name, so I can have freedom of choice. So that's some of these tips I'm following myself. When I read this presentation 4 weeks ago when I was writing it, thought, I'm not doing that anymore, I must get onto it. So hopefully you'll pick a few things up for yourself. We've also done some research, very recent research, September and October, so 2,000 Australians, about how they're using the home loan. And there's some insights from that I think it's worth sharing. And some of you may or may not have an aha moment from it. We'll also talk about the tools. One of the things over the last 4 years I've been really keen to do is get more information in the hands of our customers and prospective customers. So we've got a website and we've got iPhone apps, and I'll talk about some of the tools there. They're free. You can have a play around with them and you can learn and teach yourself more about the market. And so I think they're really useful things to know about, and I'll talk about those and show you a couple of video clips to introduce you to that, some of these tools. And as I said, at the end, I'll talk about ways to save money. Most of you are smart people. You're taking an interest to turn up here. You might be using them, but it's always worth reiterating because sometimes the simple things save you money, and people don't do the simple things. And we see that consistently when we look at analysis of home lending payment behaviours. Anyway, to move on. This is the first of our research findings, and I'm not surprised, I'm sure you're not. 85% of Australians believe it's getting harder to own a home outright. And that's probably from price escalation over time and other pressures on the budget, utility budgets going up, like electricity. Having said that, there's been outlook forecasts for next year, and I'm no sage, and I wouldn't take my advice on where property markets will go. I seem to, over the last 10 years, get it wrong occasionally, so I once sold out of the property market waiting for the fall that didn't happen for a year and a half, and that cost me a few $1,000s to get back into it. But some like QBE, who are one of the lending mortgage insurance people, are predicting a rise in Sydney around about 19% over the next 3 years. Now, I think that's a bit high, but there is still quite a lot of positive prospects. And looking at what you see, we use RP data a lot. One of the things you do see is cyclical. Melbourne's been doing great for the last few years. Sydney's been doing poorly. So you often see markets after a few years poorly perform well, and then ones that have been performing well also cyclically go for a while quiet. Like Perth went bananas more than 5 years ago, and it's had a really flat next 5 years. The other thing we're seeing as well is the underlying strength of the Australian economy. Now, employment levels are good at the moment, which is always a good sign. We're seeing high migration rates. We're one of the fastest growing countries for migration, so that drives house prices. And there's a shortage of property and a shortage of houses. I think it's about 160,000 houses shortfall, according to the Housing Industry Association. And I'm often asked when I'm talking to broker groups, loan broker groups and lenders about these things. And I also talk to analysts from around the world who invest in the bank or lend money to the bank for us to lend to you. And they're always asking about house prices and the issue. And if you look at Australia, the fundamentals of the housing market is strong. We've got a good tax regime around housing which underpins the market. We've got a lot of people living on the coast, and when you think about coastal land values, there's one direction you can't go in unless you start doing what Hong Kong did and build out into the sea. So there's some underlying fundamentals that are very strong. And some of the commentary you see about there's going to be a massive fall, we've got a good presentation on our investor website, which is available to everyone, which our Michael Blythe, our economist, did, and talks about the underlying fundamentals of what's been driving Australian property growth. So fundamentally, it's still a strong market. 25% of people, and this is really worrying, believe they'll never pay off their mortgage. That's quite frightening. If you think about it, 1 in 4 people are saying they'll still be paying their mortgage in retirement. And we are seeing a slow trend of people having not paid off the mortgage before retirement. That's worrying for me because I always think, well, you've got a little less from your superannuation, your annuities or whatever you've got in retirement to live off. As a result, it's hard enough when you've got a salary coming in each fortnight or month to pay off the mortgage without it being a point when you've got a limited earning capacity. So I think that's a very worrying sign, and that's why we'll talk about tips to pay off your home loan sooner. And the other thing is, only 66% of people believe they've got the right home loan. So that means 1 in 3 people don't think they've got the right home loan. And that's why some of these tools we've built and tools we'll talk about are worthwhile looking at, just to make sure. Because even if what you bought 2 years ago, circumstances change, your income might change, you might have an extra child, and things like that can be taken into account. And so the mortgage might be structured around your financial circumstances at the time can change. So you'll find there's a tool called the Home Loan Selector tool on the website. You can use that and talk about the sort of things and features you need, and it recommends which products are the right sort of products you should be looking at.